How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lo4f, and today I'm going to go and do this contract called Deep Study. I kind of was avoiding it a bit because I didn't really want to do it, but as it's a little bit confusing and vague, I kind of wanted to get a video done on it just so if anyone else is a bit confused as to what's going on, this should hopefully help. So you've got to get a seismic vibrator module, and it doesn't even really tell you where to take it to, but when you click on the mission and look along the maps, it kind of each different gateway tells you to go to the Institute map, but nothing in the actual description says it. It just says search like I think it was the southeast point, the southwest point, and then the northern point. Yeah, when you read in the description, it just says something about looking for like a chemical spill or something. So yeah, a bit like what's going on in Ohio with that train crash at the minute. Yeah, so vaguely kind of that bottom right-hand corner, vaguely this bottom left-hand corner, although it's actually not as in the corner as you'd think. And then for the top of the map, it just says north, so I'm assuming it's not going to be that top corner or that one, because otherwise I assume it'd say like northeast, northwest. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of roughly search in the middle. And then for this one, I've taken the Boar out for this. Someone said a couple of weeks ago, can I take the Boar out? I did take it out for a mission. It was on this phase. I was doing the, I think it was long logs that I had to go and get from the Heartlands map. But yeah, as I was going through the different trucks I could use, there's mostly Russian trucks that will have this seismic vibrator module. There is a couple of American trucks, but I kind of wanted something preferably that's got a bit of a off-road capability. Some of the American stuff was like I think the GMC 9500 was one of them, the Brigadier, the white Western style, which I don't dislike that as a truck, but it's just kind of on the sort of the average size, whereas this is kind of like a fattened up, bloated version of the those sort of six-wheeled trucks. And yeah, as far as the American stuff, it wouldn't let you use any of the Vorons. I could have used either of the Tigers. There was the Dolphin as well, John and Bruce, I think, possibly. Preferably, I wanted a vehicle that had the high-range gearbox, so I could get a bit of a move on, because I knew I'd kind of be roaming around the countryside a little bit. Yeah, so in the end, I just kind of settled on this. The Zik 605R was another one you could use, which I'd kind of argue is probably technically the best truck to use, but obviously, because it's got like the advanced special gearbox, I know I'd lose time like here, where it'd just take longer to drive to the actual map and all the rest of it. Yeah, in the end, I mean, this thing's got, I think it was like 54-inch tyres, it might even be like 58s. They might have been like the original sort of slightly smaller tyres you can put on. So either way, it's got pretty nice hefty tyres. It does have the high-range gearbox. It's got all-wheel drive. Even though you have to go in the low range, you can get diffs on if you really want. And yeah, considering this truck, there's not a whole lot of attachments you can actually have on it. There's like this, I think there's a repair thing, and then you've got like the saddle high. So as this was one of the few things I could actually put on it, I just yeah, decided to go for this in the end. And of course, bringing a goddamn professional with me, I was able, with this one, you can hook him onto the roof really. Preferably leave the like the original sun visor that the truck comes with, but then sort of load the loaf on. I was actually able to, I didn't leave it in the footage, but when I put the loaf on the roof, like with his back wheels on the roof and the front wheels on the bonnet, I was able to pack the truck, so I could have actually had him like solidly planted on there, but just as I know that this truck, you can kind of you then just stick a winch from the back of this truck to the back of the loaf and pull the winch back, and then his front tyres kind of like hook underneath the sun visor, and then yeah, his back tyres eventually sort of pop down behind the cab, kind of wedges you in between the exhaust a little bit as well. And then you have actually got, because of this seismic vibrator module, there's like those 4 yellow posts sticking up. The 2 ones near the front of the cab almost catch the loaf, but as you can see, he knows what he's doing. He's trained for these kind of situations, so yeah, he squeezes his way in. That's what she said, of course. Yeah, and that's about it. Now I'm heading to the Institute map, and at this point, by the way, I had absolutely no idea where these were or anything other than what the descriptions of the map was saying. And the other, it was a good few weeks ago now, probably a month ago, I think I tried to do this mission when I was on the live stream, and obviously because I'm talking away and reading comments and that, I'm not really paying a whole lot of attention, but I just kept getting a truck stuck on trees and that, and it was driving me a bit mad. And as the mission's a little bit vague, I didn't really want to carry on, so I kind of abandoned it on the live stream. So yeah, I never really got it done in the end. I didn't really know where any of the locations were, So for the first one, I'm going to head to the southeast one, just because then when I head to the southwest one, I can kind of head up the left-hand side of the map to the north of the map. If you actually look though on the top right now, where you got like the description of the contract, you've actually got distance kind of for each marker away, so it gives you a little bit more of a hint, because I've never really liked this vibrator module thing too much. For one, you can't operate it unless it's on one of these specific missions, which I know is that it doesn't really matter, I suppose. Like, you're not going to do a lot with it when you can operate it, but yeah, it's just a little bit vague. You can't really use it. You have to kind of wing it, keep paying attention to those distance markers. Obviously, the lower the number gets, the closer you get in. When you get to, I think it's around 150 meters away, it starts doing this beeping noise, which can get a bit annoying after a while. And then when you get kind of really close, the beeping gets quicker, I think. And then when you're pretty much on it, it then does like a flat tone, like you're flatlining on a heart rate monitor at a hospital or something. And yeah, so that's it. Like I say, I'm heading for this one in the southeast first. I don't know, I keep wanting to say northeast. And yeah, I mean, here it sort of shows you this truck. I don't know, it's definitely like this truck was struggling a little bit. I think you can hear the beeping now. I still think though, yeah, to a degree, it's like the way they just code these maps. If I was driving in similar sort of terrain on, say, like the Michigan maps or something, I think this truck would hold up a little bit better. Yeah, these stupid wooden bridge things that are practically non-existent, they end up being more of a pain in the arse than if they just didn't have the wood there and you could just drive over the ditch. So I think the first time I went there, the front tyre kind of got threaded between two boards as the gap was narrowing as well, so it sort of wedged that in there. Then I tried to bump the wheel up the board and it wouldn't even let me do that, which, bearing in mind, this has definitely got some of the bigger wheels in the game. It's not the biggest wheeled truck, but it's not too far off. Yeah, as you can see, in the end it was just better off going around it. And yeah, you can see from the markers I've drawn, I kind of expected to avoid this swamp as much as I could, and kind of assumed... That's what I mean, it says search, like, say, the southeasterly point of the map, but it's not necessarily, like, right in the corner or anything, and as I was driving along now, I could kind of see that the markers weren't dropping consistent with, like, the direction I'm going, so I started to turn my truck, again keeping an eye on those markers, and then the distance, and it starts coming down, so you kind of know, like, right, I'm pointing the right way. And yeah, I was like, oh god, I'm going to have to go and drive into the swamp. And to top it off, of course, they can't resist. They've put dead trees everywhere. And I think, yeah, just then I did sort of crash into the tree trunk, so from then on I was just like, I'll completely avoid them, because I mean, this truck, not only has it got pretty big wheels, it's also got raised suspension. Those trees are just complete death traps for most vehicles. And thankfully, particularly once I went down low range with the diffs on, this thing was actually handling it alright through this swampy section. I mean, maybe this is a bit of coded where you're kind of able to drive on it, but yeah, when I originally explored this map, I think it's still there now. I was driving Dan, which is definitely a solid vehicle, and that got completely beached and stuck in this swampy area. So I've kind of avoided the whole place ever since as much as I possibly can. Had a little choice there to go left or right. Ended up not being on this island, but sweep round to, yeah, this little island in the middle of the swamp. And again, if you look in the top right hand corner, I can't quite see because it's it shrinks the screen when I'm recording, but yeah, oh, so it doesn't flatline. I don't know what I'm thinking then in the end. It does a different beeping noise though. And when you get to about within 10 meters of the location you're supposed to get to, instead of having a distance, it just then says scan the area, and then if you press up on the D-pad to bring your options up, and then you have to press square, a bit like as if you're entering like the crane to use the crane options, and then yeah, it'll just fold those out, do some little animation and noise, and then that's it, that's ticked off the list. So yeah, that's this southeastern one done. Now I've got to head, ignore that blue marker, that was just, I'd clicked them earlier to kind of roughly ballpark where I've got to head. Now I'm basically heading to the bottom left hand side of the map. And again, even now in the auto gears, like I've got all-wheel drive on, but not the low range. It was still getting out of that swamp. Alright, but then, yeah, I drove towards these dead trees. I think possibly got beached on one again. I wasn't really paying attention at that point, so I kind of sent it under the chassis a little bit. And of course, I happened to get myself in a place where it's like, god damn it, I can't reverse because of that tree. Got to do a 3-point turn. Even there, yeah, like, the trees are ridiculous. It's probably catching on the fuel tank or something, but they are a pain in the ass, to say the least. But yeah, slowly but surely, I don't really know if, because I've got the high range gearbox. Obviously right now it'd probably be handy to have the 3 low range options and just go with the diffs on, but yeah, I still think overall it's probably quicker to have the high range gearbox, and you can drop the hammer a little bit when you're in the less crazy areas. Because again, you're on the Institute map, so there's no garage on that map, so you're going to have to set off from either really, Harvest Corp, Heartlands or Crossroads. In the end I chose Crossroads for a couple of reasons. I then basically, when I drive to the Institute map, I pop out at the bottom in the middle, which is kind of between the first 2 points you need to search. If I'd done the Harvest Corp map, I could have searched like the northern point first and then headed down the map and done it that way around. Or yeah, if I came from Heartlands, I'd pop out on like the right hand side of the map, and then I suppose it'd make more sense just head down towards the first place I've just got ticked off there. And yeah, you can see this thing gets a little bit bogged down in some sections, a bit more than I think it should. But then in other bits, as long as you had low range diffs on it, was actually handling it alright, so. Right, earlier as well, I was just before I was going to start getting the footage for this, I finally got the film off Amazon, The Thing, like the original film, which I wanted for a while, but it popped up the other day saying it was on offer, so I got that. I didn't watch it the other day because I felt pretty rough. Tonight I was like, finally found a bit of a window of time where I wasn't just going to be messing around doing other stuff. I thought I'll actually watch the film. And yeah, like, you couldn't even make this stuff up. Once I finish watching the film, and right at the end of the film, I'll try not to give anything away, so just as the camera's panning out as the film literally finishes, I had a power cut here. And it only went off for about like 4 or 5 seconds, then came back on. I did see the street lights outside come back on, but it was around the time where they sort of turn on automatically anyway, because they turn off in the middle of the night now for whatever reason, so it's usually absolutely pitch black out there. Yeah, and I still can't figure it out now. When all the electric came back on, so I just had a little look around the house just to make sure there's not like a plug socket on fire or something going on. The fridge was making some pretty odd noises. But yeah, my bathroom light was now turned off, but the fan, there's like, when you turn the light on, it also turns like an extractor fan on in there, and that was still going, so the bathroom light must have been on. But I really can't figure it out. Like, when just a normal light switch, the extractor fan's like a separate switch, but light switches don't turn themselves off, do they, when you have a power cut? Like, I would have happily bet money that that doesn't happen. I still don't think it does, but I can't get my head around, like, I always have the bathroom light on at night because I'm up at night, and it kind of shines into the hallway. There's my cat's food there because, I don't know, he's less likely to eat his food unless it's there, because from there he can see into the kitchen, the bathroom, the hallway, down the stairs, the living room. He can just see everywhere, so he's, I don't know, more relaxed when he can. Just how many people want to turn down my bloody driveway? It's about the 8th car that's came down. Yeah, so I leave the light on so I don't tread on his food or anything. Plus it's like opposite the stairs. My stairs are ridiculously steep. They're like a death trap. If you fall down them, you're going to be a goner. So, yeah, but after the electric went off and on, I walked into the hallway and it's not just the bathroom lights were off, but the switch was turned off. And I can't think for the life of me how it managed to do that. Because I'd be willing to bet money that there's no way I would have turned it off, so I don't know. It's not really freaked me out. It just so happened to be I was watching the end of like one of the all-time great horror films. But even that, I've seen it enough. I've said before, ever since I forced myself to watch The Exorcist 2 or 3 times in one night a few years ago, I don't know, it's kind of none of the films scare me or anything anymore. But yeah, it just so happened to be literally as the film finished, the electric went out. It's quite lucky, really, because yeah, if the film hadn't finished, I'd have been pissed off. But it was good. Just as the credits, I think, would have started to come up, it went off. But yeah, for the life of me, I can't think how my bathroom light got turned off, and it's been bugging me all morning. Anyway, when I was driving over to the bottom right of the bottom left of the map, so the south west point, I kind of drew some markers to where, because it tells you how far away you've got to scan is, and then when you draw a marker on this game, like these blue waypoints, even though it's in tiny writing, it actually tells you how many meters away from you your way marker is. So I tried to draw a circle, kind of roughly guessing where the next place of search is, but yeah, as I said, it ended up like not being actually in the bottom left-hand corner of the map. So at this point, I kind of figured then I'll cut across this river going along here, because I knew there was like a sort of a crossing going along here. It's not really, obviously, like the bridge is out and everything, but I knew the ground along here was shallow enough that it's not just going to drown my vehicle. So yeah, it ends up just kind of keep staring at that distance marker now and turning left and right and seeing which makes it reduce quicker. So I figured out that the next place to scan is going to be along these islands somewhere. And yeah, at this point you can hear the beeping going like mad, which can drive you a little bit crazy after a while if you don't find the marker for a while. Again, I can't quite see it now because it's not very clear anyway, but yeah, it shrinks the screen when I'm recording my voice. But the marker started to, like, as I'm driving forward, it stopped counting down and started going up a bit, so you kind of know at that point you've either got to turn a pretty sharp left or sharp right. Ended up figuring out it was over this way a bit more. And you can see the tree over to the left. The left. I've got my left and rights mixed up tonight. It was on the right. I'm basically now driving past where I need to scan onto this island. I'm kind of end up going to do like a big loop. I did notice as well, this truck actually drinks quite a bit of fuel. It's not bad on the fuel tank size, I think it's 300 litres, but when you're actually driving along, it's getting up into the high 20s, almost at 30 litres a minute. You see like an old oil drum there or something, which probably like maybe a bit of a hint that you're close by, because basically in the description of the mission it says, yeah, something like you're supposedly checking, I don't really know how a seismic vibrator module would do this, but checking for like a chemical spill or something going on. So yeah, maybe that oil drum's a bit of a clue. And effectively what I've just done is like a big loop around the point I need to scan. So there's a tiny little glitch going on there. Yeah, you can see I'm almost out of fuel, so time to borrow some fuel from the Lo4f. That's why you always bring a Lo4f with you. And it just worked out a convenient time. I'm not sure if it was doing the stalling, or you know, like where it limits the power because you're low on fuel, but this truck wasn't a big fan of climbing out of this little river section. I don't know if I'm sort of beached on a rock a bit, but pretty sure I ended up firing out a winch. Yeah, it could have been wedged on a rock maybe. Like I say, this truck, even though it's quite a large truck, it's yeah, a little bit, I don't know, sort of like a big bloated truck where and then you got the fuel tanks sort of that sit quite low, so even though overall it is a bit of a hefty truck, it still can catch here and there. And yeah, so this big kind of, I don't know, oak tree looking thing, basically near there, once you get close enough it changes the type of beep, the distance you've got to travel kind of disappears off the top right corner, and then yeah, activate that, scan that area, and that's the second one down. So it ends up being on that little island kind of, yeah, like I say, not like right in the corner, sort of southwest, whatever it is. And then I've drawn a way marker up to there because, like I say, it says north, so I'm assuming it's not either corner of the map. So I'll just kind of head up that way and then figure it out from there. Still got a feeling as well they've fiddled around with the damage in some way on this game recently. I mean, maybe just knocking the engine on that rock there wasn't really anything too crazy, but I think when I set off on Crossroads, it must have been, I was driving along a piece of land that was not bumpy or anything like that, and I was taking some hits of damage. Not just taking hits, but it's more how much damage it gives you per hit. Like, when it's 1 or 2 or 5 or whatever, it's not that crazy. But particularly when I took that Boar on A8 out the other day, that thing was taking hits that were like in the hundreds. And again, they didn't really seem like particularly rough terrain. And yeah, that's why I ended up doing like the waypoint I had to find first, and then this one, just because I prefer to drive up this left-hand side of the map. Really, I get to do like the little river crossing, which I don't know, it's quite nice to see which trucks can handle it. I assume this one will be able to because it's a pretty fat high truck, and it does actually have like the snorkels that go pretty much up to the roof, so it should have a pretty decent chance at it. You can see though, through a lot of bits of terrain, it really, there's just not a lot of torque or anything going on. You sort of sit at that balance. It forces you mostly to stay in first gear, so which it's doing it with just about every vehicle. Yeah, there's an old like petrol station, which it'd have been pretty cool if they kind of allowed us to fix that up and make it an actual petrol station again. And there is one a little bit further up, but it's in a yard that isn't even a petrol station, so not sure why they made that and then just sort of ignored it after that. Yeah, once you get into Highgate, you can see though with the fuel per minute, once you're actually up to speed in Highgate, I think it was dropping like in the high teens, kind of 17, 18 litres a minute, but once there was a bit of resistance going on, yeah, I'm sure I've seen like 27, 28 litres a minute, which you can soon burn through it. And I kind of knew now I'd be alright one way or another, because I've still got, say, roughly 80 litres in the Lo4f, because I used the roof rack, but not the actual Lo4f's fuel tank. And then after I get across this river bit here, yeah, it is a yard that I've got a fuel station thing unlocked, but I kind of, at the same time, I have faith in the Lo4f, so I wanted to see if I could chance it. You could see there when I rotated the camera around, it's a pretty good angle of like the Lo4f's front wheels hooked over the sun visor. And then yeah, once you wedge the back down, he just kind of locks on there pretty good. Not that it, like I say, there is an option to just pack him kind of on the roof and the bonnet, but I don't know, hooking him on there, I like it, then at least he sits level. So yeah, now I've crossed that river, I'm kind of on roads now for the most part, so at least I can get the distance down without nailing too much fuel. And yeah, there's the yard to the right. I could just spin in there if I really wanted and refuel and all the rest of it, but like I say, I was going to chance it. I was looking at the, now I'm motoring along the road, the distance is kind of plummeting down pretty quick. And yeah, I thought worst case I'll run out of fuel, I'll leave 5 or 10 litres in the Lo4f, I can always send him back to that yard and refill the roof rack. I certainly didn't want to though if I could help it. Got to this point, started turning right, and I could see the distance was still coming down, so I at least knew, as far as like that T-junction goes, I was going the right way. I really wasn't paying attention. I was looking at the top right of the screen, crashed into a bloody post. That did flick the Lo4f off, which that's where, if I did have it like where the back wheels are on the cab and the front wheels are on the bonnet and it was packed, obviously it'd stay on there, but it didn't really matter at this point. I'm almost at the end of the mission. And then now, even though I could tell I'm better off veering off to the right, I just wanted to get these little waypoints. Apologies, there's like a tiny little glitch going on there. I also knew the road kind of levelled out and started heading this way across the map. And yeah, at this point, I originally thought it was probably going to be like, now I'll veer off left and it was going to be one of those gaps in the trees, but I could kind of work out as I was driving down here, particularly when I turned now to go around that digger thing on the road, that the distances were plummeting even quicker, so I'm sort of heading more the right way, cutting across here. I think, yeah, I can hear the seismic vibrator module thing beeping. And we're getting pretty low on the fuel. I wasn't sure at this point. I probably could have risked just trying to drop the hammer, see if I can make it there before I need to use the fuel, but I thought sod it. Grab a bit out of the loaf, so he's not greedy. Saves 4 litres for himself, which is plenty. Put a lap of the whole map with 4 litres. And then yeah, you just get to the point, once you're getting closer, you just keep sort of steering left and right whilst keeping an eye on the distance, and you can sort of figure out from how quick it's dropping if you're heading in the right direction. And then I think as I'm driving along now, it kind of got to the point where it's not really dropping, it's about staying the same, so start turning that way. I think I got beached a little bit, so I think I could have carried on, and yeah, I was just like, sod it, before I even start burning. All my fuel was the main thing, so I didn't want to waste that. And as I started turning the cab that way, it wasn't doing a lot with the distance, so yeah, I kind of knew it was this way. And at this point it was like, which island is it? And then when I got to about here, it did it, started doing the different beeping noise. I must have just overshot it now by, is it like 0.2 meters? So it wouldn't give me the option to press square and activate the seismic vibrator module. Stuck it in reverse for, yeah, literally, what, 20 centimeters? And now it let me do it. Get it scanned, and yeah, mission complete. I think money-wise, was it about 5,000 or something? Not amazing, but it is what it is. There's some worse paying missions on this. And then yeah, it says something about crisis averted, so yeah, definitely not Ohio. And then just, I'll show you now, I suppose if you already watched the video you kind of know where the areas are, but I'll draw the 3 waypoints on where the locations were. The first one I'm pretty certain was about there. The water doesn't match up with the little islands I drove on, so it was a bit harder to work out. The second one was there with like, it's just kind of south of a little bit of water that sort of looks like a sideways teardrop. And then yeah, the third one, it is actually probably a little bit behind my truck now because I sort of overshot it by, yeah, 20 centimeters. But basically they're kind of at the north end of this little lake in the middle top of the map. And yeah, so as you can see, they're actually all quite tucked in, sort of nearer the centre of the map than the actual very edges. And yeah, that's about it. I started reversing out of here. This thing was pretty much stuck, even low range diffs on. Didn't want to claw its way out of there, but stuck a winch to the low, fired him up. I mean, goddamn beast, look at him go. He's got the muscle, dragged me out of there like it was nothing. But yeah, anyway, that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed, I hope that helps. Thanks for watching, thanks to our Patreon members. Get yourself a loaf, because he's goddamn professional and he's saved me bacon as usual. And I'll be back soon.